my dear friend Yvonne Strachan will be speaking on, I love this title. I'm going to read it to make sure I get it word for word. Redefining Disabled as God is Able. This will really bless you, especially if you have a struggling learner or a child who has disabilities, whether physically or mentally. So I want to tell you just a little bit about Yvonne. She's had the privilege of being refined through homeschooling multiple children, a special needs child, and high school students while dealing with chronic illness and working. As a homeschool advocate, radio show host, and author, she compassionately shares what she has learned to encourage, nurture, and guide the success of others. So, Yvonne, why don't you come onto the screen with me for just a minute?
Hi, Zan.
Hi, Yvonne. How are you?
Good. It's so good to be here.
Oh, it is so great to have you. I know you're going to be a blessing. So, I want to tell everybody how we met for the first time because Yvonne and I just had this, or at least I had with Yvonne, just this automatic heart link. We were at the Czech conference in Denver, the Colorado Homeschooling Conference, and she shared with me, and I know she'll talk about Ashley today, having a daughter who has Turner syndrome, which is very rare chromosomal disorder. Well, I had a daughter that I lost when I was about 5 or 6 months pregnant who also had Turner syndrome. And because of the complications, there was a good chance we would have no more children. The Lord allowed us to have one more children, but I'd never met a parent before who had actually raised a child with Turner syndrome. It was such a blessing to me to hear about Ashley and how well she's doing. And, it was just this immediate soul bond. So, and then we've just worked on several other projects together, a women's retreat, and we've been at conferences together. I know you're really going to be blessed by Yvonne. Yvonne, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be here, Zan. I just pray that what I share will really help many people.
Well, it always does. I'm going to drop off now and
Okay.
let you have the screen. So take it away.
All right. Hi, everybody. I am so thrilled to be here today. I hope what I share will just, glorify God and help you as you educate your child with special needs, or even if you're just dealing with a child that is having difficulty with something as you're teaching them. So, as a homeschool mom, I know that we need to be flexible and innovative as we teach our children. And as a homeschool mom of a special needs child, I can tell you that innovation and flexibility are key to homeschool success. Years ago, I experienced a pivotal moment in our homeschool adventure. And so I really want to tell you about that. My first daughter, she has Turner syndrome, as Zan has said. She was born with a missing chromosome, and that's what that is. And it does really affect some learning difficulties in her, and spatial, relational, and things. And so we had put her into a Christian school to start with. And after a few years, we took her out of school and we decided that we were going to homeschool. Well, I was so excited, and they had used the BJU press at the Christian school too. So I decided I was going to use that at home. But I was so excited about homeschooling. And after a little bit of time, though, I realized she was having so many difficulties, and I was feeling so unequipped and just so worried about how to help her. So through tears, I'm looking at the internet and everywhere, trying to figure out how I can help her. I'm thinking, well, maybe we need to put her into a school and have her in a special needs program. Or, maybe we need somebody who knows a little bit more about educating a special needs child. And there was something that happened then. One night I went to put her to sleep and her sister to sleep, and I just started bawling. I just had tears streaming down my face, and I had a fear that washed over me. And at first I was like, well, what is this fear coming from? And I realized it wasn't about being unequipped. It was actually about the possibility of putting her into a school where they would segregate her into a special group, and her really doubting her worth in God. And I just started bawling. And I talked to my husband, and we just decided that it doesn't matter what it takes. We were just going to keep homeschooling. And I have never questioned homeschooling ever since. So we just started thinking about, what we learned in school, in science, and how God makes creation, and provides for creation in his own way. I mean, if you look at the African lungfish, uh, when it's in a drought, he can put this leathery enclosure around himself and be able to breathe, and no water is required. So I realized that, what, if God can provide for all of his creation, he can provide for me too, as I homeschool my special needs child. So I want to encourage you that he will equip you along the way. He will grow you, and you will learn together. There are a few things that I want you to think about and never ever forget. And I want your children to never ever forget that God created every human in his image, as in Genesis 1:27 through 28. And that in Psalm 139:16, that God saw our unformed substance, every single one of us. And he knew every day that was written for us in the future. He knew our families. He knew everybody that we would be in touch with. And he has a plan for each one of our lives. And this is never so true for a special needs child. Oh, I tell you, my daughter has shown me and grown me more than I could have ever imagined. And not just me, but all of the siblings. My other children are just filled with compassion. They know how to talk to people with all kinds of different abilities or different features, and they just have a love that they emanate, and it's all kind of come from Ashley. I mean, she's made a big impact in our lives and all the lives around her. So let's move on and explore ways to help your unique learner, so you can continue to grow and learn together as you treasure the beautifully unique opportunities that you have to learn together as a family. So first I want to go over, we are told that everybody learns in a unique way, better in a certain way, right? Visual, some people learn better visually, or kinesthetic, hands-on, or auditorily, by listening. And I just want to encourage you that, yes, we may have some strengths in these areas, but it is important that we really take all these different ways of learning and use them all to solidify our learning, because sometimes we may in time lose one of our senses. Like my mom, she's losing her hearing, and sometimes you have to rely on some of those different ways that you've learned, and those different senses to be able to function. So let's take a look at obsidian, for example. You can learn obsidian in a book, and you learn that it's shiny and black, and that it's made under extreme pressure. But if you actually take a piece of obsidian like I have here, you can see that it's very shiny, and it's something that could be polished, which they have done in history. They've polished obsidian and used it as mirrors. And other Indian tribes have taken obsidian and made arrows with obsidian. And so you can take it one step further and chip off a piece of obsidian with your child and attempt to make an arrow. And then you can actually delve into further study and realize that obsidian is actually used in a lot of surgical tools as well. So obsidian can have several uses. Now, don't you think, instead of a child just looking in a book and learning about obsidian, or somebody telling them about it, that both hearing about it and seeing it and doing something with it will solidify it in their mind, and they will remember that for years and years to come. So that a multisensory curriculum like BJU Press has will help you to be able to use all of those different ways of learning. So let's go into some of the different hardships that kids have when they learn, like reading, for instance. Um, you know, I have a child with dyslexia. He is my third child. And boy, I tell you, we have worked so hard to get him to read. He was able to read as a kindergartner, but he was very slow. He would get frustrated so incredibly easy. And his reading just wasn't where my other kids' reading level was. And so, with his struggles, we would just keep at it. And eventually now he's in 8th grade and he does read his own books and he is able to comprehend. So there are some things, though, that will help you to help your child learn how to read. And there are principles that were established by Dr. Orton and Anna Gillingham, and and as a process of learning how to read. So first you look at phonology, and you look at the letter, and you just see, well, what does that letter sound like? Well, it sounds like T, like as in tiger. Well, you're going to take this with your special needs child and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to show you this letter T, and every time I say any word that begins with T, you hear the T sound, please act like a turtle or do something, and add that action into it. And you can do this with several kids if you have some that are more the same age and they just have a great time with it. That was actually one of the things that my son loved to do, by the way, was act like a turtle. He loved putting the blanket over him, and that was just like his thing he always wanted to do. So then you would move on to decoding. So you're going to sound out the words. But the thing is, if you actually work with word families, like the it word family, or in this case, the en word family, you can see that if I cover up the first letters, that it's that same picture of the en. And as a child with dyslexia is seeing that picture in their mind, that en, they will see it in several words as time goes on, and it'll help them to read a little bit faster. So that's why we work in word families. So the next thing that they will learn is the orthography and the phonemes. And so you have like your CH sound, and they will need to learn how to spell it, but then also what letters are combined to make that ch sound. So you're going to work through these different types of things in an order, and that will help them learn how to read. So how do you help somebody with special needs as you're working with them and they're trying to read and they're having a hard time? Well, you can use some audio players and some recorders, but you want to make sure that you still give them the opportunity to read. Don't just say, oh, you can't read, and we're going to use those audio players or our phones to read to us all the time. But you can use it as a tool to help them. And another thing that you can do to just include your whole family is reading out loud every night, enjoying a story together, and have your older kids read to your younger ones. And do this every night before bed if you can. So let's move on to spelling. Well, typically somebody with dyslexia will have a hard time not only with reading, but also with spelling, with handwriting as well, and even with writing. So, I'm not talking about these kids that are, in the lower years, like kindergarten and 1st grade. They're going to have letter reversal. They're going to have a hard time with spelling, but they're going to get better over time. I'm talking about somebody like my son, who is in 8th grade, that gets about 15 wrong out of 20 words on a spelling pretest, and how long we have to work and try to reiterate those the spelling rules and things like that. Typically, somebody who's having a hard time with spelling will write slowly, misspell the same words over and over again. They may use a Y for the sound of an L. Um, they may easily forget, they may get nervous about spelling, and you just need to work with them over and over again, working through those spelling patterns. Now, when you're teaching your child how to read, one clever thing that I thought BJU Press uses is phonics characters. Mr. and Mrs. Short, oh, they are my favorite because they are always together, and I love spending time together with my husband. So it just, encourages that picture, that wonderful family picture. But they have some great phonics characters like Miss Long and Marker E that follows behind her, or Miss Silent, that is her sweet little friend. And you can use those when you teach your children how to read, to talk about how those sounds relate to each other, especially in those vowels. But as you're spelling, I use those same phonics characters to remind my children, because now they have that picture and that story and those sweet little characters to think about. So as you're learning spelling as a family, you will want to maybe do some games together. So have fun with it. Play Scrabble, Upwards, come up with new words. Use those word families like the it word family and just have them build on it. What else can I put on there? What else can I say? So those kind of things will help you. Also, you can do spelling art and incorporate art into your spelling and create a little pyramid. So you may start with the S, and then the next line would be SP, and then the next line SPEL, and so on. So you have those blocks with those letters on it, and you can even have them decorated. So that may solidify it just a little bit more for you. So let's talk a little bit about handwriting. And I get so excited about the handwriting because I just love the BJU Press handwriting. And the reason why I love it is because kids can have a hard time if you have just like a line and a circle, and just trying to figure out where that circle goes on that line can be very difficult and very confusing for kids. And BJU Press actually developed their spelling where you have kind of similar to Danielian, where it's 1 and 2 strokes. And if you look at the second grade handwriting book, if you haven't looked at it, just please look at it, because I love the way that they've done that. The 1 and 2 strokes are the same strokes as they would be in cursive. So when your child needs to switch from their precursive to cursive, it makes it really easy. And I tell you, every single one of my kids have not given me a hard time or had many tears over the handwriting. So how do you make handwriting fun? How do you work with a special needs child with handwriting? Well, there are some wonderful things that you can do. And Play-Doh. Play-Doh is fun. Get all your kids together and create some of those letters that they are learning. Also, try some sand. Put some sand in a tray and trace those words. So enjoy that with your children. And then talk about when the handwriting is difficult when they're older, you can actually take tracing paper and put it over one of the papers in their handwriting. And as you do that, they can trace and practice maybe with a smaller size as well. And that has been really, really helpful for a couple of my kids, actually. So just try that. Now, let's talk a little bit about writing. Now, writing can be difficult for some kids, and just trying to process. My daughter has a hard time with processing, but over the years, we have really worked through her writing and how to process the steps to writing well. And she is now an avid reader and an avid writer. She actually edited my book, and she has written, she's working on her 3rd book now. And one of the things we have to do is work through the process of writing and her being able to write chapters and thinking through those things. And that was one of the things she had difficulty with, but she has really honed that skill. So if you have a child that has a hard time with processing, like my daughter, you may want to use some tools like a Venn diagram. And this Venn diagram can be fun, not just on paper where you decide to put maybe things that are different out on the outside, and then where the circles are overlapping, you would put where words that are the same or things that are the same. Now you can incorporate this with your children in your driveway and draw some big circles and gather some things that are different and alike and try sorting them out. And that way you can do that with many of your children and make it a game. The other thing that we have found that is really fun are story cubes. I don't know if you've ever heard of story cubes, but they're kind of like dice that you roll, and you can get pictures that show up. And what we'd like to do is you see a picture and you have to move each dice over. Like, let's say I got a cactus, so I have to tell some story about a cactus, and then whatever's on the next dice, maybe it's an eye, then I have to say something about how maybe I saw the cactus or whatever. And sometimes you can get some really funny stories, and it can be a lot of fun. So when you're thinking about writing, you can do some fun activities with all of your kids and make it a fun experience. So let's talk a little bit about math. Math is another thing that is very hard for many kids, actually. And one of the things that I love are the abacus. And this is really fun, especially when you have younger kids and you can count by twos and move, the beads back and forth. But the abacus is really helpful when you're helping your children learn, and it's a good visual. And there are also other good visuals like Unifix cubes that you can use. And you can see that when you're adding that there are 4 Unifix cubes, and I'm adding 3 Unifix cubes, and there I get a 7. So it's a very good visual. It's easy to understand and fun for the kids. I mean, you can do this with Legos and all kinds of things. You can look at dominoes, you can look at dice, and you can match up numbers. You can look at different number patterns. You can line them up like 1, 2, 3, 4 in a line here. And that can be fun for your kids as well. So those physical objects and just really grasping the math as they move on, and then just move slowly. That's one thing with a special needs child. We actually graduated my daughter Ashley at age 21. And I've told people this, and sometimes you just kind of like, oh, I don't know what people are going to say. I just, I waited to graduate my kids, but I have told some other people that have had struggles with their children that it is okay to move slower. It is okay to graduate your children later, because I'm telling you, even if they do go and have a job, there's nobody that says, what age were you when you graduated? They just want to know that you graduated. So your job is to just help your children along the way and prepare them for whatever you can to help them in the future. So let's talk a little bit about just some generalities as well. Rigid thinking, right? There are some kids that are very rigid thinking. I have a son that is that way. He does not accept other people's ideas. He sees only one solution. He micromanages others a lot. He gets upset when others don't follow the rules. You may have a child like this, and there are some things that you can do to help your child who is a rigid thinker. So take something in your house, for instance, and maybe try to figure out other ways you can use it. This is a block, and how might I use this block? Well, I could stack this, make things taller, maybe set something on it, like water, so it can be a stand. Otherwise, it could maybe be a bridge for his cars, or maybe if you turn it this way, it could be symbolic of a skating ramp. Here, it's a phone. So have them come up with different ideas and brainstorm together and just connect that to other ways of life. And then another thing that children have struggle with is knowing what emotions are like and being able to interact with others. And so, if you have a child like this, sometimes they might not understand what a person looks like when they're sad or when they're upset or maybe when they're bored or maybe interested in other things than talking to than to the subject that you're talking about. So there are things that you can do to help them. You can first start out with those smiley faces and show frowns and such, but then also it's important to see that on real human faces. So you want to be a little bit dramatic. So when I'm angry, maybe I want to make a really angry face. Or when I'm happy, what does mommy look like? Or when I'm sad, what does my face look like when I'm sad or tired? And just have them identify those emotions. And then teach them those conversation starters. Maybe have them start to with a compliment. Oh, hi, Mrs. So and so. Your hair is so pretty today. And then usually they'll get a smile, and it's easy for them to interact a little bit easier. And then those social skills also, if somebody is talking to you and you're talking with them and you start talking about something and they look down, they start kind of backing away a little bit, they're probably not interested in that subject anymore. So maybe you might want to change the subject. So these are some things that you can help your children with as they interact with others. Now, one of the things that is really on my heart about a special needs child is they need to know that they are important and what they do is important. So there are some things that you can do with them. You can volunteer with them, or maybe discover their interests and find somebody else who has an interest like that, and that can even develop into an apprenticeship if as they get older. So I want to tell you a little bit of a story, and this is the reason why I say this is just so important for them to have that sense of importance. So my daughter, who has the Turner syndrome, she has a little bit of a hard time um, just being able to do some of the different chores and being able to even butter her toast. So if she butters her toast, she would put it in the same spot over and over and over again, probably until she gets a hole in that toast. So, she just doesn't have that concept of being able to spread things out. And so cleaning, we in our family, we pair up different kids and have them clean the kitchen every night. And so she's one of those children that also, she still lives with us here at age 22. And so she is in that mix of cleaning up the kitchen every night, on her nights. And so, cleaning up the stainless refrigerator, she's going in one spot over and over and over again. And she's methodical, but takes things slower because the processing is a little bit difficult for her. So, my younger kids are now, at the age where they're getting paired up with just her and them. And um, they one day said, "No, no, no, we're just going to go get the kitchen. You can do something else." Oh, no, that was not something I wanted for my child. I wanted her to feel just as important and that she was giving just like the other ones. So my husband and I had to bring the younger ones down to a different level later in time, and just let them know that she needs to be um, able to do all the things that they do. She needs to feel important and she needs to know that she's giving to the family. Does it really matter if something is cleaned a certain way or done at a certain speed? They just need to be patient and know that, the kitchen will be cleaned again tomorrow. It doesn't need to be perfect. So just that sense of importance is really important to every person, special needs or not. So, as you're working with your children, you're going to want to promote that lifelong learning and just let them know that we are learning all the time. You don't want to rescue them when things are tough. Don't tell them never. No, I'll do it. You don't want to give up, move on, or do things for them because you're just literally telling them that you don't believe that they can do it. And if you don't believe in them, how are you going to give them strength? As they struggle yet persevere through those challenges, they will get strength, they will gain confidence, and they will keep trying. That will cultivate that self determination that helped my daughter all those years. Yeah, she graduated at 21, but the doctors told me that she would never get past sixth grade math, and we got her up through Algebra 2. Now, she didn't get an A in Algebra 2, and I worked alongside her, but she was able to do it. And I'm telling you, as you work with your special needs child, they will be able to do more than you or them could ever imagine. So I just want to encourage you by saying, what does Jesus say about disabilities? You know, as he was walking with his disciples, they saw a blind man, and he was blind from birth. And his disciples said to him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus says, you know what? Neither this man nor his parents have sinned. But this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in him. John 9, 1 through 3. So I thank you, God, for these special needs children. And I am so incredibly blessed to have one in my life. And I am just thankful for every one of them. And you guys are all very blessed as well.